So this is Silverton, the game of Colorado railroading. This has had plenty of coverage. It's an old game, a well-known game, but I've just got it and I really like the look of it. I've got the first edition. This is the Two Wolf version. Nice cover. And this game was released, I don't know the exact year. I wonder if I could find it in the rules. I can't be bothered. I reckon it was released in about 92, 91, 92. And it has components from 1991, 92. I found an unused copy, so all the counters were unpunched, and even these train cards were on sheets, perforated sheets, and you had to separate them out and stuff. The components are as basic as can be, but they have a kind of pleasing rusticness to them, even though they're, that by today's standards is nothing to write home about. And even in 1991 standards, that was not a great card. But for people of a certain age, that was pretty standard component quality. There was nothing terrible about that. So these sort of slit index card style material, really hard to shuffle, really hard to use, but so what. Yeah, the map is nicer than the modern version that I've seen. Doesn't cover as much territory. Starts up in Salt Lake City up here. To the east is Denver. Below that, Pueblo, and down in this bottom corner is Santa Fe. And so it's and then. Sorry, I was going to say it's covering less area than the more modern version, which runs down to El Paso, I believe, further down there, but it has a lot more stuff, I think, in here as well. And they think they moved all these charts and tables off the map onto a separate sheet. So the basic game, to run through it quickly, is about trying to make as much cash as possible through mining and passenger ferrying. You have cards which represent passenger routes there, which can be claimed once you've got the two locations linked together by rails. So if you have track which runs from Denver to Leadville, you can claim that card, pay the cost, which will be the distance of that track times 100, and then from then on you make $13.50 per turn in fares. And similarly, Denver to Pueblo, 400, Denver to Boulder, and so on. The other way of making money is from claims. A claim looks like that. Bingham gold costs $1,000 to claim it. Each turn you want to run it, you have to pay $300, and paying that $300 allows you a roll of 2 dice, and the result of that 2 dice roll is either D, depleted, or the amount of gold listed, a quarter, a half, or 1 gold. And different mines will produce different quantities of different stuff on different rolls. So you can see you can get coal, lumber, gold. There's a lot of gold mines out at the moment in various places. So those are the ways of generating cash. So the sequence of play is that each player draws a chit from in this cup to determine where they're going in turn order. Then they will use their prospectors and surveyors to and place them in order on the map to show where they'd like to lay tracks. For the surveyors S and the prospectors P, they can put on these and these to try and claim them. If multiple players try and lay the same track or try and claim the same thing, then there's a dice roll to see who wins, and the loser goes home empty-handed. Having done all that, you can pay to construct your track, which is the figure in the box there, 400, 600, 600, 800, 500 and so on. The little numbers are the distance. Pay to construct your track, pay to take your claims, and then you can operate your claims, so you can pay the operation cost and have your roll of the dice to see whether your claim produces anything or whether it depletes and becomes useless. And then you can ferry your passengers if you've got any routes open, and you can try and move your freight back to cities where you can sell it. Now, the prices you'll get are all marked on this chart here, the selling price chart, and you can see the markers here for the various cities. I've knocked them all over the place. Oh no, actually I haven't done too badly. So you can see that gold just has one market price. It's starting at 5,000 per unit. Silver's at 2,000 in Denver and also 2,000 in Salt Lake City, but closer to dropping in Salt Lake City, and so on. So each of the markets has a different price, and it has a formula at the bottom for how it changes at the end of each turn based on you roll a certain number of dice, you may add modifiers for how many's been sold into that market, and then there's a modifier based on the turn to represent demand increasing over time. You match your dice roll on this table and it tells you whether the prices go down, stay the same, or go up. So it's quite a neat little system. It's very easy to do. I generally put the first game I played of this, I played 5-player, and I just put the commodities as they were sold just up here on the chart, so that I knew what had been sold into what markets, and I could modify the dice rolls accordingly. There's a maximum number. Those numbers across here, maximum sale, no limit on gold, no limit on silver into Denver, and so on across here, 3, 10, 8, 6, 6, blah, blah, blah. So, you know, getting the first to market, especially something like Salt Lake City silver, or, you know, some of these markets, can be important in terms of limiting what other players can sell. But generally speaking, this is quite an interesting and sophisticated little economic mechanism for determining what is of interest and where to sell it to, and combining that with hooking up your railway lines into the different markets. It's all quite intriguing. Now, I played this 5-player as a test run. There were 2 players out of Salt Lake City and 2 out of Denver up here, and 1 out of Pueblo. And it should be said that Denver, this Denver Pueblo area, has a lot of advantages. The winning player in that 5-player game that I played came out of Pueblo, with one of the Denver players a close second, the other Denver player a sort of semi-distant third, and the 2 Salt Lake City players, 4th and 5th, as also rans. I mean, just nowhere near. And if you look along just the passengers, you can see, okay, there's Pueblo to Santa Fe, Denver to Colorado Springs, 250, Denver to Volda, another 100, that's 350, Denver to Pueblo, that's 400, so it's 750, Denver to Leadville, that's 1350, that's 2100, Salt Lake City to Provo, 100. So there's 2100 turns in passenger routes out of Denver. There's 100 a turn in passenger routes currently available out of Salt Lake City. And I can tell you that when these are gone and you flip up the B passenger routes, it doesn't get much better for the Salt Lake City player. And this is like working capital. This is guaranteed income each turn, well, apart from when the snow closes the rails, but this is guaranteed income 3 turns out of 4, which provides you with working capital which can fund your new purchases, fund your claims and so on, and keep some income rolling in. It means that if you've got some passenger routes, you've got $600 or $800 worth of passenger routes, you're not going to run out of money. You can do something each turn. Whereas if you've got nothing, you have to manage your cash and rely on these things producing for you to keep money rolling in, because you can just run out and just be stuck. It's possible, I think, to reach a position in this game where you simply can't do anything anymore because you've run out of cash and you've got nothing which is producing cash. You can't be in that position once you've got passenger routes, because even if it's a winter turn and your passengers don't run, you can't use purple rails. They're not showing up very well, but there's black rails and purple rails. You can't use the purple in the winter, but you know, these are a safety net. $2,100 coming out of Denver, $100 coming out of Salt Lake City, and by the end of the 5-player game I was running, the 2 Denver players had about $4,000 worth of passengers, and Salt Lake City, I think, had 700. You know, one of the Salt Lake City players had 700, the other had 100. So these guys were bringing in 8,000 between them, 10 times what Salt Lake City was bringing in. So I'm not entirely sure if I just played really, really badly. But the cards aren't there for Salt Lake City to generate the passenger income that Denver can produce. I'm hoping that with just one player coming out of Salt Lake City, they can alright, so they're not going to get that passenger income, but they do have Heber City, which can produce silver. There's Bingham Gold, which is available, which has come up straight away for them, which is just right next to Salt Lake City. There's Eureka, which can produce silver down here. There's another place which can produce gold just down here, and I'm hoping that with just one player not having to compete for the rail and all the claims and everything, that they can take their pick of what comes up and be somewhat more competitive. And also that these 3 actually fight each other for the goodies and aren't, you know, just completely cooperative. So that's what I'm going to see see how the game looks in 4-player, because in 5 I've just felt that that Salt Lake City, with 2 people coming out of it, didn't look very attractive for either of them. But by the time I reached the end, I was sort of shrugging and thinking, how on earth were they meant to do better? If I were to run 5 players in this again, though the rules suggest otherwise, I would probably put the 5th player down in Santa Fe, just to force another player to compete in this area and make it less, just that bit more compressed and more competitive, and just prevent the Denver guys having their pick of everything in this area, because that is only going to have one possible outcome. So yeah, there it is. I'm going to explore 4 players and see, and I'm really interested to see whether Salt Lake City can come out with anything close to a competitive strategy, not even winning, but just competitive, and being aware of how much wealth and power there is in this Denver and Pueblo positions. They have to be trying to screw with each other, basically, to stop each other getting set up. Yeah, so blue is running out of Salt Lake City, and then over on this side we have the red player and the green player in Denver, and the yellow player coming out of Pueblo. These are their surveyors and prospectors on their trains. Everyone starts with a 9 train. I'm using some of the advanced game rules. We'll be playing with snowplows, we'll be playing with trains. I'm not playing with deals between players. It's strictly, you know, best man wins. There's no sharing of track or stuff like that, but you know, only what the basic game allows, and I'm not sure what that is right now. I'll double check it when it seems necessary. So yeah, there it is. I'm not going to use, I did for my other games, but I'm not going to use this rather trainy paper money. It's I just awkward to handle, so I've got the poker chips out for this instead. Just easier to see at a glance what people have got, and it's just less handling time. But anyway, I'm going to crack on and see how this goes. So I've pulled out the turn order chits. Green's got 1, blue out of Salt Lake City has got 2, yellow here out of Pueblo has got 3, and red out of Denver has got 4. So green now has to make a choice as to what he's going to actually try and accomplish here. There's 2 gold mines available in Leadville. 2 Leadville gold mines, and then next to Leadville there's an Aspen silver mine which is available as well. The other things that are available are coal out of Bowie, which is incredibly hard to get to, miles away and not very valuable, although it does produce a lot of coal, but anyway, miles away. And then a Silverton silver mine, which is way down here that no one's anywhere near, and then the Bingham gold mine up over at Salt Lake City. So Green has to decide how he's going to play this. He's got a surveyor which is the best in the business around these parts, so he's got a slight edge in surveying, but his prospector with no modifiers is a slight disadvantage compared to his competitors around here. So what he's going to do is drop his surveyor onto this track here, headed towards Leadville. So he'll have to build down there, through there, down to Fairplay, up there to Dillon, and then down here into Leadville. That's all purple track, so the winter will shut it down, but that's what he's going to aim for. And then in terms of prospecting, I mean, he's really got to attempt, since he's aiming for Leadville, to try and pick up one of these Leadville gold mines. This one's 1200, this one's only 500. It's slightly worse, it depletes on a 2 to 7 and then quarter, half and 1. This one depletes on a 2 to 6, half, 3/4, 1. So this one's a slightly better proposition, but he's going to try and avoid the competition for that one and prospect the slightly worse gold mine, also because he's building expensive track. He wants to keep his claim a little bit cheaper. So then it goes over here to the Salt Lake City player. Sorry for the camera shake, I'm just doing this left-handed, trying to play right-handed. So he is obviously, he's going to build the track out to Bingham and claim the Bingham gold mine up there. See if he can't get anything working there. So yellow down here out of Pueblo has to make a decision now. Now, one of the interesting things about Pueblo is that it hasn't got a silver market, so you can sell gold, lumber and coal in Pueblo, but you need to hook up to Denver to get silver on sale, which makes the Westcliff silver mine, if it comes up here, of limited interest. However, he would like to be in the game up here and not having to scrap around in this coal and lumber for scraps. So he is going to take a fairly aggressive route straight in here to Cannon City with the aim of having this black track which can run year round into Leadville. So he's going to do that. So he's going to survey in there, and then he's got a choice. He doesn't reckon, well, you know what, he's going to have a go at the good Leadville gold mine. And then that leaves Red with a problem. Red has got a surveyor +1, and he's got a surveyor +2 on the track that he wants, so he could challenge for that. The trouble with losing is that you get to build nothing, and that's a waste of a turn, and he may have to accept the slightly less efficient route in through here. On the other hand, it does, if he builds the Denver to Colorado Springs line here, that also gives him access next turn to the Denver to Colorado Springs passenger ticket, which is 250 cash a turn, and then he can hook up Pueblo for another 500 and pick up the Denver to Pueblo passenger route as well, and that's a nice 650 a turn, which gives you a good base to build from. So I think I've talked myself into it. He will drop down here on this track into Colorado Springs, and actually he wants to build out from Colorado Springs on this purple track so that he is at least fighting for track over into this area, can drop down into Cripple Creek from the north, can open up Fairplay from the south, and make his way into Leadville up that black track there, and then have opportunities in those claims, and he'll hook up Pueblo when he's got a free moment. Now the other thing is, where does he go? Where does he go and fight? Aspen Silver is a no-no. Leadville, given that he's behind in the race to build to Aspen, that's worth, not really something he wants to do. Leadville Gold, the bad Leadville Gold. Why would you fight for bad Leadville Gold? Yes. On the other hand, what's he going to have to pay? He's going to have to pay 8, 11, 21, 27, 32 or something to get to Leadville. 3,200. But he might as well be fighting for good Leadville Gold rather than... On the other hand, he's got a P+1. He's got a better chance of winning bad Leadville Gold. He is going to try and stiff Green, who took his track, for the bad Leadville Gold, because he's got just a better odds on that roll. So that's the first thing we do, is resolve disputes after you've done that, placed everything. So green and red dice off. So red gets a 2d6 +1 and gets 6, and green, sorry, was that red? I can't remember whether I said red or green. I think that was red. Yeah, 2d6 +1. So they get a 6. Green gets a 5, and that means red has won that. Green's prospector goes home empty-handed, and now we do the buying and building. So I'm going to get that done. Players have finished their turns in turn 2. Yellow here, coming out of Pueblo, just carries on building his second bit of track. Huge roll on his Leadville Gold Man, rolled a 12, pulled an entire point of gold out. That roll was worth $4,500 to him at current prices. Could be up to $7,000 for that roll. So he was a happy chappy. Green, on the other hand, his prospector went and battled for a Leadville silver mine. He won that battle. He paid $200 for the Leadville silver mine, so it was pretty cheap. He paid $200 to operate it, and he rolled a 1, which even now when you roll on these mines, on your first turn you get 1d6 plus 6, but still you can see this gold mine, if you roll the 1, would still deplete before you got anything out of it. That's what happened to him. He pulled this cheap Leadville silver. He won the battle for it. He rolled 2 actually, but that was still an 8, and that depleted the mine without getting anything out of it. So that was $400 that he threw into a silver mine for no return at all. Carried on building his track. Red, having pushed on down to Colorado Springs, now cut up into the mountains, so started building. Just picked up the Denver to Colorado Springs passenger route for some guaranteed income, and he was happy. And then over on this side, out of Salt Lake City, the blue player firstly had a roll on his gold mine and picked up a quarter gold, which wasn't the greatest result, but it was way better than depletion, so he's still got an active gold mine. And he picked up the Emery coal mine, which produced a lot of coal for it. It's a bit out of his way, Emery. It's right down here. He's up over there, so it'll take him, a few turns to build to it, and he's got to decide exactly how he's going to link it up. I think it looks like from Provo here, he's going to follow this route down here into Price, Sunnyside, and down there, so that he's got a route into Grand Junction, which is his other passenger terminal, and that will allow him to run back to Emery and hook the coal up that way. And that also gives him a route that doesn't have any mountain track on it, which is a bonus over here at Salt Lake City that he has to make use of. So yeah, he's going to try and avoid the purple track so that he can run all year round, because that's possibly the only advantage you've got coming out of Salt Lake City compared to these guys over here. And actually Pueblo's tactic of running is also staying on black track up to Leadville, so that he also doesn't have the winter turns problem. And he's having the best of it in these opening turns, but there's a long way to go. Going to turn 3 here then at Silverton. The blue player over here at Salt Lake City had a stroke of luck in that the passenger card that got revealed was Salt Lake City to Grand Junction, which gives him a viable passenger route to aim for, running down the way that he was planning to go down here through Price, Sunnyside down here. That will hook up his Emery, allow him to hook up his Emery mine and carry on over here to Grand Junction, and so he's actually got a route that accomplishes something, so that's nice. And also a Sunnyside here, another coal mine just appeared, which only depletes on a 2, so quite a efficient coal mine. Now coal isn't great to be running right now, but it's kind of income. If it's only depleting on a 2, it means that once it's hooked up, you can keep it running, and you can keep churning some income, even if it's not huge amounts of money. He also had a massive roll on the Bingham gold mine, rolled a 12, got another gold, and so he's sitting on, at current prices, that's gold's currently at 5,500, so that's 11,000, 12,000 something dollars that he's got there on the Bingham gold mine in reserve, so that is huge. Similarly, for the yellow player, also got a huge roll on the Leadville gold mine, and he's sitting on $11,000 in gold. Also picked up an Aspen silver mine, and this is the benefit of building the black track out of Pueblo. It's 4 builds along this black track up into Leadville. It's 4 builds for these for green, but green can't build this turn because it's purple tracks, and that's winter and it's all snowed in, so he's got to wait a turn. That means that yellow wins the race to Leadville, because he'll get to Leadville this turn on the black track, and then wins the race to Aspen, and this shorter route down here to Grand Junction. So yellow is actually looking in a very strong position right now. Green's got some work to do. Green's also sitting on no claims whatsoever. the only consolation he's got is that he will be able to pick up this Denver to Leadville passenger route to start getting some income once he hooks that up. And he's going to have to probably, not probably, but maybe work back round from Leadville up this track round here to Hot Sulphur Springs, and maybe hook up a lumber yard at Hot Sulphur Springs just again, so that he's got a possible way of making cash. And lumber can move for decent money later in the game. It can get up to 1,000 in Denver, and that's not to be sniffed at, especially if you can produce 3 of it with a dice roll. So it's income, and green really doesn't have a lot of better options right now. So red cut into the mountains here, and picked up a coal mine down here at Walsenburg, because red is planning to drop his track during the winter month where he can't build in the mountains. He's going to drop a track down from Colorado Springs to Pueblo, which will then give him the Denver to Pueblo route as he planned. And then he thought, well, he can then drop another track down to Walsenburg, and again it's coal. It's not glamorous, but it is income, and a steady source of income is not going to win you the game, but it means that having operating money to build, money to pay for claims, money to keep moving is what you need at the moment. So that's his plan. So we're coming into turn 4. It's a winter turn. It means they can't build on purple track. Green is now looking for what that means he does build. The others have got a plan. End of turn 4 here at Silverton, and we've got something of a two-way race at the moment between the Pueblo player and the Salt Lake City player, both of whom turned in a lot of gold this turn and leapt out in front in terms of the cash. So the Bingham gold mine here depleted this turn, but he could see the yellow player was hooking up Leadville and would also be selling gold. Gold was going at 5,500. A 9 train allowed him to turn in the full 2 1/4 that he had sitting in the Bingham gold mine, and that netted him $13,700 and something dollars, and he's now sat with 16,000 there and some change. So he's got plenty of money to invest now, but he's down a gold mine, and he's just got coal at the moment and a minor passenger route. So down here, Leadville gold kept producing. Aspen silver was depleted, but the Leadville gold kept producing. Again, he hadn't bought another train. He only had a 9 train, so he could only get 1.5 of his gold out of Leadville. But that was still enough for whatever it works out as, $7,750-ish, and so he's got cash in hand of, there's 12,000 and a few $100, but he's sitting on another 7,500 worth of gold and about 4,000 worth of silver and some coal, so he's got another 12,000 in assets waiting to be delivered. Green continues to be screwed. He ran track up to Boulder just so that he could claim the Denver to Boulder route for $100 a turn. It'll pay back in 6 turns with the track and paying for the route. And if he lucks out, the Boulder lumberyard appears, and he's got that ready hooked up. He also bought this Hot Sulphur Springs lumber yard because it was cheap and he needed something to do. so was a bit, wasn't quite sure what he was doing. Red depleted his, that Leadville gold's been depleted for a while. Pushed on down to Pueblo and will be able to claim the track, and his coal mine down at Walsenburg is producing like coal's going out of fashion. Unfortunately, on the pricing chart, it isn't going out of fashion. It's as cheap as chips. So the prices are pretty depressed of coal and of lumber, really low. They've just been falling and falling. Silver's worth plenty, gold's at sort of midpoint. So all that coal that people have sitting on, and even lumber, is barely worth delivering at the moment. The other thing that happened is a card came up, an event card came up, which means you redraw all the claim cards. And what's appeared: Elvado, Dolores, Lake City, Walden, Lumberton, with the exception of Westcliff Silver, which has fallen right into the pocket of the yellow player, who's already in the driving seat and has just had a silver mine appear right in the middle of his rail. But the rest of that stuff is just crap. I mean, not in terms of necessarily the claims, but where it is. I mean, Lumberton's down here, Elvado's down here, Dolores is over here, Lake City's up here, Walden's all the way up over here. No one is anywhere near any of this stuff, and to build out to it for a single claim like some of these, it's just not viable. So there's going to be some prospecting off the deck, I imagine. You can send your prospector to the top of the deck here and flip that card with your prospector, and then you get first dibs on whether to buy it, and if you don't, you add it to the lineup. So there's going to be some potluck prospecting off the deck, I imagine, because what's available there is just rubbish for everyone, apart from yellow, who can pick up this Westcliff silver. So that's the state of play. Coming into turn 5. Yeah, turn 5. I've rolled forward into turn 8 here. I think turn 8's about to begin. Yeah, the winter turn. Just to keep the game moving. Blue up over here has continued to push out from Salt Lake City towards Grand Junction. On the plus side for them, there's a Salt Lake City to Grand Junction passenger route just there, $12.50 a turn, but another one just opened up here, $700 a turn. I don't think anything prohibits them from having both, so I think hooking that up is worth $2,000 a turn, which is great because they haven't got any other great income. They've got a couple of coal mines, Sunnyside, which is connected up on their route here, and the Emery coal mine, which if we drop down here is over there and can be connected up with one build for $800, but they'd rather go in this direction first, and then they can hook that up and build. And the only other thing they've got is if we come down this track here to Dolores, they've got a lumber mine there at Dolores with a couple of lumber on. And the Salt Lake City lumber price, you can see at the top of the chart there, $1,500 a unit, is why they picked that up. Even though it's a few builds away, they're the closest to it, and that looks like it's worth having, because lumber in Salt Lake City is just worth a fortune. Over here, the red player just had a very bad turn. Their coal mine at Walsenburg just depleted. It's still got 10 on it, but it's gone. The Westcliff silver mine that they grabbed from under yellow's nose has just depleted as well. So they've got no working claims at the moment, and really having to struggle to find some direction here. The trouble they have is that in the claims department, Elvado's no good to them, Leadville's no good to them, Bowie's no good to them, Alden's no good to them. Lumberton's miles away, and Uray is no good to them either. If they want to, they could build all the way down to Lumberton over here and Alvarado down here, but it's a long old way from their territory. It's 4 or 5 or 6 builds away to get, to get lumber hooked up, which admittedly is valuable in Pueblo at 1,000 a shot, but still that's a lot of track to build for some lumber yards. Really it is. And lumber's worth nothing in Denver. So they are struggling at the moment. All they've got is they've got a 250k passenger route. They've got some coal that's at an okay price on the chart. If we come back over here, you can see okay, coal's around 400. May well be going up because the modifiers are -3 on the dice roll, so it could hit 700. So that would be nice for them because they'd then be sitting on 7,000's worth of coal. However, the other problem that they've got is this player here, the yellow player, is also sitting on 10 coal and will also be trying to dump it when it hits that price. So they need to be ready to offload it as much as possible because there'll be a race to Denver to dump coal, and it can only take 16. So. And this player has 2 24s and a 9 trains, and he only has a 24 and a 9. So he needs some more capacity if he's going to shift all this coal in one go. But if he tries to do that, he's probably wasting money on trains that he then won't be able to use with very little freight to carry. So he's in a weak position compared to this yellow player who's very strong, got a lot of capital, still sitting on 3 gold and 4 silver and plenty of coal, with all the trains he needs to move it around and great lines running from Pueblo through here. He's got a track up into Leadville and he's now pushed out through here to hook up Lake City, and can push on towards this Uray where another silver mine has come up. He can challenge for this Leadville silver mine in there, although he'll face competition for green from that. So this yellow player's in a very, very strong position. Green has the Denver to Leadville passenger route hooked up, so he's at least guaranteeing some income, but his money was down to, there's about $3,000 there. So it's not great, and his only claim is a lumber yard up here at Hot Sulphur Springs, which he's building round towards. Having been cut out of this route towards Aspen, he's come north round here, will hook up Hot Sulphur Springs, and then will think about building down towards Grand Junction. But it again depends what, it might be more worth his while to try and maybe take that Walden lumber. I don't know. Depends whether he pulls out that Leadville silver. He's certainly going to compete for the Leadville silver mine, and it's a question of whether he gets that. But he's got a weak prospector. It's just no bonuses on the die roll compared to this guy who's got a +1 and red who's also got a +1. So yeah, although the board position doesn't really tell you, yellow is by far in the strongest position. Blue's in a good position by virtue of having about to hook up some good passenger routes and having 14,000 banked, and green's position is not great, and red's position is not great either, even worse in fact, after the turn he's just had. So those guys really need to win a claymore to have something fall in their area and get some cash together, because they are slipping further and further behind. End of turn 10 here at Silverton. In fact, no, that's rubbish. It's the beginning of turn 10, it's the end of turn 9. Yeah, end of turn 9.
Yeah, eventful turn actually, that one. So over on this side of the board, the blue player has now hooked up Grand Junction, which means he can start claiming the Salt Lake City to Grand Junction routes. So he'll be able to claim 2 in the next 2 turns. That'll be healthy for him, and that also frees him up to start building down here. He's got Emery to hook up if he wants to, but he's got another coal mine, so he's not in any great hurry to hook up this Emery coal mine, and he's not even bothering to operate it. It's sat there with 12 or something coal on it. He can hook it up, but he's got coal coming in turn after turn from this Sunnyside coal mine, which only depletes on a 2. He's getting 3 or 4 a turn. That's more than he can transport, although he has just picked up a 42 train, which became available in turn 9 to allow him to shift large amounts of coal around. So if it looks like he can move more than Sunnyside's producing, then he will start possibly hooking up Emery. But what he wants to do is build this track down here to Dolores, where he has a lumber mine with 6 lumber currently sat on it, which at the going rate is $9,000 worth of lumber. So that's what he wants to do, is hook up that lumber mine. And then he also grabs this Telluride silver mine out here, and he's got 2 silver on it currently, and that's nearly $5,000 worth of silver. So those assets there are $14,000 at current prices, and not likely to go down because nothing else is hooked into the Salt Lake City markets. So it would take some quite unlucky rolls for that to go down. So he needs to build down there and keep those producing, and then he sort of grabbed the 42 train with the idea in mind that he'd want to shift a big job lot of lumber out of this Dolores place, and you know, the maximum he can sell into that market is 8, but he wants to hit all 8 at $1,500 a pop. And that would make him $12,000, which he'd be quite pleased about from lumber. So that is blue. Over here, so Cripple Creek came up as a gold mine, quite a nice gold mine, cost $1,600. Red and yellow battled it out for that gold mine, and both built track to it because they realised that if they didn't, yellow had to build this track up to it, because otherwise red could build this track, and then yellow would be really, would be cut off from getting to it, and they could play nasty games. So both built track to Cripple Creek. They contested it, and red won the battle. Technically, I suppose yellow didn't have to build the track. I mean, he put the prospector down. He didn't have to pay for the track, but I don't know if there are other gold mines in Cripple Creek, so another one might come up. So he thought, it's not like he's short of cash. So anyway, red won the Cripple Creek gold mine, which is great. It only depletes on a 2 to 5, but he only rolled a 2 with a D6 plus 6. He rolled an 8, so he only pulled half a gold out of that, and that was only worth 2,250 gold. The claim cost was 1,600. The operating cost was 400, and he had to pay 300 to build the track there. So he's currently $50 down on that deal, which isn't great. What that did do, however, was drive the price of gold down, because the gold prices rolled a 6, and with half sold that went up to an 8, and that drove it down to 3,500. And red and green would both, well, in fact all the players would really like gold to stay low, because this player, the yellow player, has consistently rolled 7s and 8s and 9s on this Leadville gold mine. It hasn't depleted. He's sat on 4 gold, which is, I mean, it's $14,000 at current prices, but it's $28,000 at maximum prices, so they want to keep the price depressed. So this red player, if this Cripple Creek gold keeps producing, will probably just keep dumping it into the market to try and keep the gold price down, so that yellow can't capitalise on these huge stocks of gold that he's holding on to. What else? Oh, the other thing that happened was that silver rolled a 2 or a 3, silver prices shot up in Denver to $4,000 a unit. Over here, the yellow player hadn't had all his silver reserves down here at Lake City, but hasn't built the track to Lake City, so couldn't dump his reserves onto the Denver silver market. Whereas Green had his reserves in Leadville, had 3 silver in Leadville, managed to sell those into Denver for $12,000, and Red had a silver left on a silver mine somewhere as well. Not Aspen, but certainly had a Westcliff. That was it. Had the Westcliff silver mine with a silver, picked up $4,000 for that. So these two players, Red and Green, cashed in on sky-high silver prices and dumped it back down to $1,800 a unit. And again, they're kind of trying to gang up on Yellow, who's clearly leading, just to try and depress the prices as much as possible so that they can't cash all their assets in and leap out into the lead. So yeah, quite a lot going on. Some stuff just came up. Green just got the Boulder lumber yard if he wants it. He's got 10 lumber in Hot Sulphur Springs, and the lumber prices in Denver still isn't going up that much. And an Aspen coal mine just appeared. I'm not entirely sure how attractive that is to anyone, but you know, it's possible that someone picks it up. And of course, these Salt Lake City to Grand Junction and Salt Lake City to Grand Junction are about to be picked up as well. So there'll be some new passenger routes appearing over the next couple of turns. Here we are in Silverton, coming into turn 13, the second half of the game. Still seems quite tight though. I think that's... Well, actually I think there's a fairly close game between blue here and yellow on the other side of the board, so the Salt Lake City player and the Pueblo player. The reason for that is that the blue player managed to hook up down here to this Dolores lumber yard. It was depleted, but he had 8 lumber in there, which is the maximum you can sell into Salt Lake City. It is 8 lumber. And the Salt Lake City lumber price was up at max, and that just made him $12,000. So he's just become the first player to bust over 25,000, where you have to announce it. He's now got one of those nice 25,000 chips. He's also got a working gold mine out of Silverton, which is just down here near Dolores, where he's dropped down, and a Heber City claim has just come up for a silver mine there, which is right outside Salt Lake City, so he's hoping to get some value out of that as well. No one else will really be competing for it, so he's got things going on at the moment, and he's also got steady income from passenger routes down into Grand Junction, $2,000 worth of passengers a turn. So he's in good shape because he's making regular money from passengers. He's got a couple of good, well-producing coal mines just to churn some income from that, and then he's beginning to pick up interesting silver and gold as well. He'd love to find another lumber yard down here in this area, because the price getting up to $1,500 in Salt Lake City is just crazy. It's really good cash. On this side of the board, so the yellow player doesn't have the 25,000 cash, got about 15,000 there by the looks of it, a couple of 5,000 chips and then some 1,000s. That's about 15,000 in cash, but that is 5 3/4 gold. Now gold's down at a low price and it isn't shifting. I'm not rolling low numbers, and so it's down at 3,500 for gold. The lowest it goes at is 3,000, but that still means that at its worst is 18,000 in cash, and at the current price is close to 22, something like that. $22,000, and that would jump this guy well into the lead, $6,000 or $7,000 into the lead. Also sitting on 2, 3, 7.5 silver, and a couple of coal mines, and a little passenger route there. The price of silver out of Denver is currently rock bottom because a lot of people dump silver into that market at a reasonable price. It was up to 2,000, but there's just too much silver in the area for anyone to let it get up high before someone dumps it. There's just a lot around because the yellow player's got it, but also this green player has got Leadville, 2 Aspen silver mines, and so on. Yeah, so green's not doing great. Red really isn't doing great. Just a couple of lumber yards and not much passengers and not much way of making cash. So it's a bit of a 2-horse race at the moment. Very close to the end here at Silverton. 2-horse race between the blue player out of Salt Lake City and the yellow player out of Pueblo. Over the last few turns, the Salt Lake City player, he's pulled in $12,000 with a big lumber sale, $9,000 with silver because that had reached its maximum price. Sold 3 at $2,400, another one this turn at $2,000. So that was $9,200. As I say, $12,000 in lumber, a couple of nice big $5,000 coal runs, pulling in $2,000 a turn in passenger income, and that's pushed this guy right up to the point where he's close. He's got a 25,000 chip there, 30, 40, 1, 2, 3, 44,000 and some change, and his track is year round. He hasn't got any purple track. So he can run his passengers, and he can run another 10,000, 5,000, or another 10 coal, and he's potentially, well, no, he won't be able to hook up his gold this turn, but he could well tip over the $50,000 mark this turn if the price of coal stays anywhere reasonable. It may drop sharply, but a good roll and it wouldn't go anywhere. So because the modifiers now are -5, this stack of coal is only a -5, so there'll be a roll with no modifier on the chart to see if Salt Lake City coal price moves. So feasibly blue could tip over $50,000 this turn. Similarly, yellow had to do some calculations. He's still sitting on 5 3/4 gold, which current price is, that's 25,000 roughly. All his silver was going to be locked in because of the winter turn coming up, so he shifted as much of his silver as he can, and he is now sat on 25,000, 30,000, 31,000, but with 25,000 in gold that he can move at any time out of Leadville, because again he's got all-weather track out of Leadville. So if the gold price moves down and the value of that gold drops, he may not make it over 50,000. If it stays still or moves up, he'll comfortably make it over 50,000, and that probably wins him the game. If it stays still, it's probably a very, very close game. The other two players are pretty much also rounds at this point. Denver 2 has got 25, 6, 7, 8, 29, $30,000 ish, and this Denver player here has got 5, 10, 15, 20, 21,000 ish. So they're nowhere close, and they haven't got assets that are going to make up the difference. They've got a bit of lumber and coal and so on, but nothing spectacular. I have to roll price changes now for the end of turn
15, and then we'll be doing what I expect is the final turn. So it is over, and the yellow player out of Pueblo has just sneaked into the lead here, with that big gold sale right at the end. The price of gold actually dropped, rolled a 6, dropped it to 4,000. That gave the blue player some hope, but then over here on the chart the price of coal into Salt Lake City dropped, and that cost him $2,000. He sold 10 coal into Salt Lake City anyway because he had to try and make some cash. But that price drop cost him $2,000, which probably wasn't the difference, because if we look at the scores here, the Pueblo player has got $54,800 there. That's his final score, $54,800. And if we come over here to the Salt Lake City player, that's his final score, 25, 35, 45, 49, $49,325. So just a little bit short of the 50,000 mark, but still a pretty good showing out of Salt Lake City, I thought, and far more competitive than, so much more competitive than when I had two players coming out of Salt Lake City and fighting over everything. Just no hopes for them. In this game, the two Denver players just didn't run into any claims, really. The Pueblo player running that very fast track up into Leadville and grabbing the Leadville gold mine, which turned out to be the winning claim, that thing producing well over that, $22,000 or $23,000 in gold. That was the killer claim that just pushed them over the edge, because that would have bumped either of these players right up to the winning post as well. So that proved to be the difference between them all. That player with his a good roll won that claim. But here the green player, who finished third in $30,000 and some change, 425. So that's his final score. And then the red player finished last with just over 25,600. So yeah, really interesting game, and I've only played this multiplayer twice, one 5-player, one 4-player. As I said before, I was a little concerned with two players out of Salt Lake City that I just didn't think either of them would ever come close to competing with the player or the couple of players that did well out of Pueblo or Denver. I just couldn't see enough around. With one player out of Salt Lake City, they're likely to be in this position, reasonably often, I think, where they're certainly competitive right up until the end of the game. That said, this player benefited greatly from having the right passenger routes come up for them when the Bs were flipped over to Salt Lake City to Grand Junctions. This Dolores Lumberyard really helped them out, and yeah, they had pretty much the right things come up for them. Although Heber City didn't come up, or it did, and and he bought it and it depleted immediately, cost him money. Eureka never came up, and of course the Bingham gold mine was quite productive for him. So yeah, he had the right cards come up for him, but and that allowed him to stay in the race. These two just couldn't grab the right stuff, were relegated to bad situations where they couldn't get their freight moving. And in the case of Red, had a terrible time with buying this Cripple Creek gold mine, which ought to be a real money maker. If I can find it somewhere in here. You can see how long ago it was, but there it is, Cripple Creek Gold. If you look at that, I paid $1,600 for that, $400 to operate it, and $300 for the track into it. So paid $2,300 to get this going, and got half a gold out of it, and then it depleted. So he lost, he lost $50 or something at the price as it was. But that, that produced half a gold, and this, with much lower numbers, depleting on a 2 to 6, half, 3/4, and 1 gold, produced 5 3/4. And again, had this Cripple Creek gold mine worked for red the way the Leadfield gold mine was for yellow, again, that could have put this player right up in the mix, but the dice rolls went against him, and he got hosed out of potentially a small fortune in gold out of Cripple Creek. So yeah, things like that. When you look back on the game, it can seem like this guy was $25,000 behind the curve, but that gold mine could have been the difference for him. So yeah, all kinds of things going on in this game, and I'm really looking forward to playing it again, to be honest. I won't do it right now because I have other things to play, but I'm certainly going to take it round to see some friends this weekend and see if they want a game of it.